First, Biden is mumbling and bumbling his way all through Ireland, looking at castles, another adventure today. Now, he stumbled through a speech in Belfast and seemingly confused the White House and the Capitol. Take a look at this.
It's hard to communicate just how deeply invested in your success, the people across the United States are. And those of you who've been there know it. You know it. I'm not making this up. This is real. It's almost people can taste it. As a matter of fact, as you walk into my office in the Oval Office in the United States Capitol, guess what? You know who founded and designed and built the White House? An Irishman. No, not a joke. Not a joke.
Not a joke, okay. U.S. President, that's a joke. He also repeated his favorite line, telling people not to jump on multiple occasions. Take a look.
And I want all of you to know, especially the young people in the audience today, and don't jump, okay? Oh, I didn't see it all the way up there. As my father would say, please excuse my back. I apologize. Just don't jump over me. Don't jump. No, not now.
Not funny. All right, today, despite the White House claiming this is an official visit, Biden spent most of the day, as I mentioned, going through castles. And by the way, often looking dazed and confused as usual as he's being led here, there, and everywhere. And as usual, he took no questions from the press as he sat down with the UK Prime Minister, whose name he didn't seem to quite remember. But anyway, take a look.
Heck of a view out there.
Okay, guys.
Okay, we're good. All right, we're going to walk out slowly. We're going to walk out slowly. We're walking out this way. We're walking out this way. Walking out this way. We're walking out. We're walking out.
Listen.
We're walking out this way. Press. Press. We're moving. We're moving. Mr. Prime Minister.
But let not your heart be troubled. He eventually did offer to take questions from a group of children, but he was distracted by one of the child's Air Force One toy before being redirected by his son, zero-experience Hunter, and you can't make that up. Now, this begs the question, by the way, first take a look at that.
Any of you guys want to ask me any questions? What do you want to ask me? Oh, Air Force, look at this. Air Force One. Right here. That's pretty cool, man.
Hey, Dad, he's got a question.
What's your question?
Top acceptance success.
What's the top what? What's the top acceptance success? Well, making sure that we don't all have COVID. What are you talking about?
It's a success. Like, what's the key to success?
What's the key to success? There was a guy named Jesse Helms from South Carolina, North Carolina. And he was a very conservative guy who was not very crazy about African Americans when he got here. We always had fights.
Well, the key to success for Hunter is to do business deals when your dad's the vice president, have no experience needed, and do millions and billions of dollars in deals. Which begs now another question. Why was Hunter even on this trip? Now, is it normal for a president to use taxpayer dollars to take someone under a federal investigation by his own DOJ on a foreign trip? And wouldn't it have been nice to have maybe invited his 4-year-old granddaughter to the White House Easter egg roll and hunt? Joe and Jill Biden have never once acknowledged their own granddaughter. Imagine for a second any conservative that was that cruel, that cold-hearted, who cares about the By the way, no one cares about the circumstances surrounding her birth. It's a 4-year-old precious girl and their granddaughter, and she's been shunned. That is pathetic. And if it was a conservative, you'd hear about it every day. And while we're at it, by the way, why is Biden taking this trip? Frankly, it seems like a taxpayer-funded vacation, and even the media mob, they are confused. Well, they're pretty much always confused, but they're even more confused than usual. Take a look.
After today's pretty meaty and sensitive interactions with political leaders here, I think there's a perception that the rest of this week is essentially, tree planting, bell ringing, and a taxpayer-funded family reunion. What would the White House say to that charge, that this is essentially the president coming to rediscover his roots, and that there may not be much substance beyond that.
I would not surprisingly dispute that characterization. Like I said, the president today is going to have the opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister of the UK. I think the president feels very strongly that there is benefit both here as well as in the United States to mark the anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement.
So Joe is enjoying his Irish vacation. The world, by the way, is now entering the most dangerous time, in my view, since World War II. My father fought in the Pacific for 4 years. And by the way, that includes the Cold War. A new axis of evil is now forming right before our eyes. And by the way, a new world order, it is taking shape, and it is not one that you should be happy about. All of this is a direct result of Joe Biden's glaring weakness on the world stage. And under Biden's failed leadership, America has now abdicated its role as the world's leading superpower. And China, they are racing in to fill the void. And just this week, the Chinese army released a video on state television showing what an attack on Taiwan would look like. By the way, this seems pretty imminent to me. And today, China issued even more warnings to the U.S. It seems to be a warning a day, at least, not to interfere with their territorial ambition amid the joint Philippines and U.S. military drills. But don't expect Joe to hold any of them accountable. They sent a spy balloon all across the continental U.S. and Alaska, and it relayed sensitive intelligence in real time back to China. Joe did nothing. When they threatened, quote, serious consequences over a U.S. warship in the South China Sea, Joe did nothing again. They have unleashed COVID on the world. They construct blatantly unfair trade deals. They commit rampant intellectual property theft. But again, your President Joe does nothing. How many more threats is Biden going to take from China before he finally takes action? But it's not just China getting a free pass. Russia, they shoot down a drone out of the sky or they take one out. What did Joe do to respond? Nothing. What do both countries have in common? Millions and millions and millions of dollars in business dealings with the Biden family syndicate. Coincidence? I don't think so. With Biden giving, up our position as the dominant leader in the world, this new axis of evil now is plotting to take over. Last month, China brokered that deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now we see that they're likely going to do the same thing with a Saudi Arabian deal with Syria this time. If that happens, that shows that Saudi Arabia has made a decision. Meanwhile, leaked U.S. intel is saying that Russian operatives are now claiming new ties with the UAE. In other words, the coalition that Donald Trump built, the U.S., Israel, the Saudis, the Emirates, Jordan, and Egypt is now falling apart and crumbling before our very eyes. Egypt is now giving weapons to Russia. We give them billions of dollars a year. It's time to stop giving them a penny. So make no mistake, these countries, they are making what is a calculated, deliberate decision to side with this new axis of evil. Let me explain in more detail. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, these countries that had bet on the U.S. when Donald Trump was in charge, allied with the U.S., they are now siding with China and Russia and Iran. They see America as weak, and they want to join the winning side. And they're betting that, in fact, Joe Biden and the United States will lose. In other words, they're betting against America, and they're betting on China. That is a real, clear, present danger to all of us in this country. And it is not just our enemies picking up Biden's weaknesses. Even our allies want nothing to do with him. Look at this recent visit to China with French President Macron, who's happy to throw Joe Biden right under the bus, saying, no, we won't get involved if you invade Taiwan. And by the way, before urging Europe to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar, China desperately wants that to be the world's currency. On top of that, we're dealing with multiple hostage crises all around the world. You have Secretary of State Wink and Tony Blinken recently confirming that there are still 175 Americans left behind in Afghanistan, and a number of them are hostages. And remember, Joe promised he wouldn't abandon Americans in Afghanistan. He did. And meanwhile, an American is being held hostage in Mexico as we speak tonight. And a Wall Street Journal reporter is being detained in Russia, and he did nothing wrong. So how do we expect to lead the world if we can't even take care of our own? Our military is woke. Our economy is broke. We have absolutely zero leadership and courage. And the world has taken notice, and they've made a decision, China in particular, aligning with Russia and Iran, and now the Saudis, and now the Egyptians, and now the UAE, that they think this is their moment to act and become the world's #1 superpower. Well, Biden didn't get he got a nice tour of a castle in Ireland today. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.